Hey gang, and welcome back. Just a reminder, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com. You'll get 10% off orders over $10 and help with the channel at the same time. This week we have two of the new commanders for your viewing pleasure. I am playing Unesh, Sphinx Sovereign, and I keep an opener with 3 islands: Alhamrat the High Arbiter, Guardian of Tazim, Deep Analysis, and Worn Power Stone. Jason is playing the Scarab God, and he keeps a hand with Scalding Tarn, Reflecting Pool, Urborg, Sidisi Undead Vizier, Risen Executioner, Crypt Breaker, and Dread Return. Stefan is playing Atraxa, and he keeps a hand with Merciless Eviction, Everflowing Chalice, Mystical Tutor, As Foretold, Godless Shrine, Wooded Foothills, and Crystalline Crawler. Pat is playing his Tasigur deck and keeps a hand with Command Beacon, Forest, Watery Grave, Mana Crypt, Buried Alive, Eternal Witness, and Clever Impersonator. Jason wins the die roll and starts us off. Jason starts off the first turn by playing Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and the first creature of the game is Crypt Breaker. I forget what direction clockwise is, but Stefan is nice enough to remind me. I play an island and pass turn. Pat plays a forest. Steph plays Wooded Foothills and passes turn. Jason plays Reflecting Pool and passes. I play an island and also pass turn. Pat plays a Scalding Tarn, and Steph responds by cracking his Wooded Foothills to find a tropical island. And at the same time he casts Mystical Tutor to shortcut having to shuffle a million times. He puts Farseek on top of his library. Steph then plays Godless Shrine, taking 2, and casts Farseek to find Underground Sea. Pat responds by cracking his Tarn to find Breeding Pool. While they're searching, Jason uses Crypt Breaker's ability to pitch Risen Executioner to put a zombie token onto the field. Jason plays Tainted Isle for his land drop and casts Urza's Incubator, naming zombies. Moving to combat, he swings the token at Steph for 2. For my turn, I play an island and cast Worn Power Stone before passing to Pat. Pat reveals Temporal Mastery on his draw step and casts the extra turn spell. He then plays Watery Grave tapped and moves to a second turn. Pat then plays Command Beacon and passes. Steph unfortunately misses his land for turn and casts As Foretold for future shenanigans. Jason plays his own Scalding Tarn and, paying only 2 black, casts Undead Warchief. Moving to combat, he swings the token at me for 4. During his second main phase, Jason casts Sidisi Undead Vizier for only 2 black mana as well, and he exploits the token to tutor for a card. I'm also told that 6/7s for 2 mana that tutor cards are very good. For my turn, I play an island and cast Deep Analysis. With nothing else, I pass to Pat. Pat plays Caverns of Souls, naming Praetors. Then, he delves away his Scalding Tarn and casts Tasigur before passing. On Steph's upkeep, he puts a counter on As Foretold and moves to his draw step. He manages to draw and play Flooded Strand. Steph then casts Atraxa, taking 1 for sacrificing Flooded Strand, and at the end of his turn, proliferates the As Foretold. Jason responds by activating Crypt Breaker's ability at the end of turn, tapping 3 zombies to lose a life and draw a card. Jason plays a swamp and casts Undead Alchemist for 1 blue, but I've had enough of these cheap zombies and I stop it with a counterspell. Jason, of course, has another cheap zombie, and this time MacLeod comes out for only 3 black mana, wishing I hadn't blown my counter on the Alchemist. Moving to combat, Jason swings Sidisi at Pat for 7. For my turn, I play an island and cast Deep Analysis with Flashback, paying 2 mana and 2 life to draw 2 cards. I then have to discard down to 7, dropping an island, and pass to Pat. Pat plays Windswept Heath and taps 4 mana to cast Clever Impersonator, copying Jason's Sidisi. Pat has Sidisi exploit herself and tutors for a card. Pat then casts Mana Crypt and uses Buried Alive to find Vornaclex, Jin-Gitaxias, and Sheoldred and put them into his graveyard. Pat is then able to tap his Caverns of Souls for black thanks to Urborg and casts Reanimate, taking 7 to bring back Sheoldred. On Steph's upkeep, he upticks As Foretold and unfortunately has to sacrifice Atraxa. During his first main phase, he delves away some cards to cast Treasure Cruise. Thankfully, he finds a land, and Overgrown Tomb comes into play untapped. Steph then casts Commander Sphere for free, thanks to As Foretold, and tapping the sphere in his land, casts Everflowing Chalice, kicked once. Jason responds once again at the end of turn by tapping 3 zombies to draw a card and lose 1 life, but first cracks Scalding Tarn to find a tapped Watery Grave. On Jason's upkeep, he sacrifices Sidisi to Sheoldred's trigger, and the Undead Vizier returns with Undying. Jason then exploits Crypt Breaker with Sidisi to tutor for a card. Jason then draws for his turn and plays a swamp. He casts Diregraph Colossus for 1, and then brings back Resin Executioner from his graveyard for 2. This triggers the Colossus, giving him a zombie token. Moving to combat, Jason swings MacLeod at Pat and the Undead Warchief at Steph. Pat chumps with Tasigur, and Steph takes 5. With nothing else, he passes to me. For my turn, I draw and play Nykthos, and I then cast Jace the Mind Sculptor. It's at this point that I start telling people that this is where a board wipe would be ideal, and I downtick Jace to force Jason to return MacLeod to his hand. With nothing else, I pass my turn. On Pat's upkeep, he returns Clever Impersonator with Sheoldred's trigger. He has the clone copy Sidisi and exploits itself once again to tutor for a card. Pat then rolls for Mana Crypt and doesn't take any damage. With nothing else, he passes turn. On Stefan's turn, he has nothing to sacrifice in his upkeep, but he does get to uptick As Foretold. He then thankfully has a great answer to the board state and casts Merciless Eviction, naming creatures. Jason responds by tapping 3 zombies to draw a card and lose 1 life, and Pat also responds and casts Croson Grip on As Foretold before it can get out of hand. The spells resolve and all creatures get exiled, and with nothing else, he passes turn. Jason unfortunately has no land drop for his turn, and he casts Grave Titan to help re-establish his board. With nothing else, he passes to me. For my turn, I play an island, and during my first main phase, I cast Unesh, Cryo-Sphinx Sovereign. This lets me get a trigger similar to Factor of Fiction, and I choose Steph as my opponent to make the piles. I keep a pile with Golem's Eye and Basalt Monolith. I then uptick Jace, Fate Sealing Pat, and keeping the card on top of his library. At the end of my turn, Pat in turn cracks his Winsap Heath, taking 1 to find a forest. Pat plays Mana Confluence for his turn, and Jason nicely reminds him to roll for Mana Crypt. Sadly, Pat once again avoids taking damage. Pat then casts Eternal Witness to return Reanimate, and casts Reanimate to bring back Jin-Gitaxias. Pat then follows up with a Champion of Ronist and passes turn. At the end of his turn, he draws 7 and has to discard down to 7. Steph unfortunately once again misses his land drop, but he plays Vulturous Zombie during his first main phase. He then casts Oath of Ajani, and moving to his end step, is forced to pitch his hand. Jason plays City of Brass and casts Dread Return from his hand. He brings back Undead Alchemist and casts Zombie Master. Moving to combat, Jason swings Grave Titan and his gang at Pat for 10. This gives Jason 2 more zombies thanks to Grave Titan, and Pat blocks the Grave Titan with Eternal Witness. The tokens are unblocked, and Pat has to mill for 4 thanks to the zombies. Pat hits 1 creature, which Alchemist exiles and gives Jason another zombie token. Passing turn, Jason dumps his hand, which gives Vulturous Zombie a bunch of counters. I play an island for my turn, then cast Alhamret, High Arbiter. I name Cyclonic Rift, and naturally, since I'm bad, I miss the Unesh trigger even though it isn't a You May. I then use Jace to unsummon Jin-Gitaxias, and move to combat, swinging Unesh at Pat. During my second main phase, I cast Golem's Eye, and pass. On Pat's upkeep, he once again avoids damage from Mana Crypt, and moving to his main phase, he casts Mana Vault and drops Exotic Orchard. Pat then casts Time Warp, and I respond by trying to Mana Leak it. Surprisingly, Pat doesn't want to pay 3, and he moves through his combat step to his second main phase. He then casts Deadly Tempest, and Jason regenerates the Zombie Master, and I take 2, Stefan takes 1, Pat takes 1, and Jason takes 7. Steph draws and plays Bayou, then proceeds to tap his Sphere before sacrificing it to draw a card. He follows up with a Colonian Hydra and passes to Jason. Jason plays Bloodstained Mire and cracks it, taking 1 to find a swamp. Moving to combat, he swings the Zombie Master at Pat for 2. In his second main phase, Jason casts the Scarab God and passes turn. I draw for my turn and activate Jace's 0-cost ability to get a free Brainstorm. I play an island and cast Sphinx of the Final Word. I then activate Nykthos and generate 4 blue mana, then use some of it to cast Basalt Monolith and pass to Pat. Pat untaps his Mana Vault, albeit a bit later on his turn, and plays Mosswort Bridge, hiding away a card from the land trigger. He then casts Vorinclex, making it uncounterable with Cavern of Souls, and passes. For Steph's turn, he casts Corpsejack's Menace in his first main phase and moves to combat. He swings the Colonian Hydra at Jace, which triggers the Hydra's doubling ability, which in turn triggers the Menace. The end result is a ton of counters, and I happily let Jace die rather than try and stop the damage. At the end of Steph's turn, Pat Cyclonic rifts the Scarab God back to Jason's hand. Jason draws for his turn and in his first main phase casts Havengul Lich. He activates the Lich's ability, targeting Mikaeus, and casts Mikaeus from his graveyard for 4. With nothing else, he passes turn. For my turn, I cast Windreader Sphinx in my first main phase and move to combat. I swing my Sphinx of the Final Word at Pat for 5 and draw a card. During my second main phase, I drop Guardian Tazim and pass to Pat. On Pat's turn, he pays 4 to untap the Mana Vault, but unfortunately it isn't enough. He rolls an even number and dies to Mana Crypt, which is one of the bucket list things that I've had since I made this channel. During his first main phase, Steph tries to cast Tamio the Moonsage, but my Disallow has other ideas about that. Moving to combat, he swings the Colonian Hydra at Jason, threatening 36 damage if left unchecked. Jason chumps with Havengul Lich and Zombie Master, and his creatures come back thanks to Undying. With nothing else, he passes to Jason. Jason unfortunately doesn't get to untap his lands, which means he can't cast the card he drew. So he moves to combat, swinging the Lich and Mikaeus at Steph. Steph declares no blocks and takes it right to the face. Jason passes turn, and Steph tries to assure me that he isn't the biggest threat right now. On my turn, I activate Nykthos to generate a good amount of mana, and cast Sphinx of Ithune, and give Jason the chance to make the piles. Jason makes 2 piles, and I take the one with land and coat of arms. I then play an island and cast the artifact. Moving to combat, I have enough damage on the board to swing and kill Steph. I get to draw 3 cards thanks to Windreader Sphinx, and pass to Jason. Jason casts Soul Ring for his turn, and then drops the Scarab God. He victimizes on Scarab God to bring back Gempalm Preluder and Grave Titan. This lets Jason swing at me for 21, but unfortunately he isn't able to kill me, and I kill him on my swing back the next turn. Unesh is an awesome blue commander, but unfortunately it's difficult to find a lot of really good Sphinxes which allow you to get the triggers. Even though I missed it, we played another game later on where Pat played the deck, and it was incredible to see how many cards he was able to draw thanks to his commander. Unfortunately, Jason wasn't able to do anything super cool with the Scarab God, but he was able to show off a pretty sweet zombie deck. The Scarab God having a 4-mana instant speed Eternalize is fantastic, and it's even better with something like Training Grounds on the field. But there's often enough support for a zombie deck that you actually don't even need to be able to do it to be a threat. If anything, if Jason had been able to untap with a Scarab God on the field and at least a few zombies, he would have gotten a huge amount of value thanks to the damage and scry he gets. That was a huge Colonian Hydra, and Steph was able to do a lot of interesting things despite being stuck on lands and being unable to cast Atraxa more than once. I enjoy the 4-color commanders, and Atraxa is definitely the most popular, but I think she also draws a lot of hate. Speaking of hate, there are very few things that'll get a table to instantly hate you, but tutoring for 3 Praetors is one of those things. It was pretty sweet that he was able to get all 3 of them out at least at one point, but it ultimately didn't save him in the end because he died to Mana Crypt. Please be sure to tune in every Monday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video, with a second video popping up sometime during the week. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta, or check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in part by support from my Patreons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below or in the About section. As always, thank you guys for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.